Mike. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I want to ask you about 1 John 5:16. It talks about if anyone sees his brother commit a sin that does not lead to death, and then it goes on to say that there is a sin that leads to death, and I'm not saying that we should pray for that. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I've had a hard time trying to figure out this scripture.
Well, you and every Christian for the last 2,000 years has had a hard time dealing with this passage. And all I can say is, if there's two ways to look at this, right? Contextually and historically, does John assume... Well, I will say that I can say this confidently. John would assume that they know what he's talking about. And either they know what he's talking about in specific teaching that he'd given them already, right, about kind of categorizing this so it wouldn't be such a head scratcher. Or there was an emphasis enough on the category that I'm going to go to elsewhere in Scripture to say, I think there's a category here that the Bible, we can assemble an argument and say the Bible does speak to this concept of the apostate. So the idea in my mind is one of two things took place. Either there was some specific things that he had already articulated, and I would say, well, the only way for that to comport with the rest of Scripture, and I don't think he's going to teach them unbiblical things when he's not writing, but he's teaching them or writing in other things that aren't canonical Scripture, are certainly going to comport with the only thing I can see in Scripture that would tell me, well, we don't see the kind of sympathy for an erring brother the way we see for an apostate. And an apostate is someone who's going to completely trample the blood of Christ under their feet. And that's just a quotation from Hebrews. They're completely turning away with full knowledge of what they're leaving behind. And that picture is throughout the Scripture, like in James, like a sow, like a pig returning to wallow in the filth of the dirt pile of the pig pen, or the dog that returns to its vomit. Like, these things are put in a category of Judas. Like, this is the reprobate who leaves with full knowledge. They're false teachers. And so our job then is to defend the flock from the false teachers. Our job is to protect the people who are faithful to God from those apostates. It's